we've done yesterday. Yesterday, we covered collection view. We created a collection view programmatically. We also subclass UI tab controller in order to set up our controllers for our tab. And we did everything programmatically. And we added a unit test to create our model. So we added a unit test, and along the way, we created our model, and we created our API client. To review where we are now with the application, our app right now has a search bar, and it has a collection view of cells, of dummy cells right now, because our cells are not getting any, it's not hitting from the API. Actually, it is probably hitting from the API. Let me double check if we still have a hard-coded, right. So if you still have a hard-coded return 50, it's not using the articles from the API, right? That's where we stopped yesterday. And the big picture, what are we trying to build? We are building an application that queries the New York Times Top Stories API to get a series of article stories for the day, right? And there's several sections. The section we're looking at here is the business section. So this is the first screen of our application. It has a search bar, it has a collection view of cells. So the first place we'll head this morning is create a custom cell, a custom collection view cell, all programmatically to add to our collection view. Next step, we'll go ahead and we will add a picker view to our settings page that has the sections of news, right? And that picker view will basically control what we see on our first page. And will also persist what the user selects. So if the user selects technology, next time they run the application, the first page should show technology news, okay? Any questions so far with what we've seen yesterday or what we're seeing today, the overview? Okay, so again, today, hopefully we get to doing some custom delegation. If not, that's fine. We'll continue on Monday, but we'll get as far as we can with setting up our persistence and saving articles, because that's a big part of Unit 4. Cool. All right, so the first task for us today is to go ahead and create a cell. We'll create a cell, we'll call it new cell. It will be a custom cell, subclass of UI view controller cell. So we'll subclass UI view controller cell, and we'll go ahead and lay out our cell very close to this one. So here we have an image view to the top left with some padding, about 20-ish there, 20 padding, top and leading. And we have two labels. We have the label for the title, and we have a label for the abstract, okay? Let's go ahead and build that out. And again, before you get started, make sure that your application is in a state that it has, at minimum, a search bar and cells in your collection view. And here we're returning a hard-coded 50. Let's go ahead and actually change that number. Let's look at the lecture resources. The project is there. So I made sure to Slack that out this morning. It's updated. So in Slack, it's updated here, lecture resources. Just open up Unit 4 and go right here. It says Top Stories, number 15. That is the project here. What? No, not a new one, for people not here. Or people that want to just catch up from where we are now.
Oh, sorry. No, I had Slack there. That's why I was able to catch up.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. Okay, so. Let's actually keep the 50 for now. We'll come back to the API. Let's work on the cell, and we'll come back and change that hard-coded 50. Does everybody have their cells being rendered?
Yeah.
All right. Anybody not have their cells rendered? Hands up so we could help before we continue. Okay, cool. So let's go create a new file. We'll create it in our view section. You could go ahead and create like a cells folder, but for now we'll refer to our cell as a regular view. So we'll go to our views folder, We'll right click, we'll say new file. Right click, new file. We'll go Cocoa Touch class, we'll say next. And here, what is the subclass? What is subclass in? UI collection view cell, very good. So UI collection view cell. And here we'll name it new cell. Amini, were you able to get the project? Okay. Make sure right, everything is on that lecture resource. It's my goal to make sure everything is there. Slack me too, if it's not there yet. I don't want to have materials not available to us. Okay, so new cell is the class name. Click next and create. Okay, so here we have our new cell. We could go ahead and use our code snippet like we had before. So here I'll just say create custom view, and I'll simply change this to new cell. It's subclass of UI collection view cell. The code snippets are very handy, especially when you're doing redundant code. You could even do it for like your extensions too. Extensions on collection view cell or collection view data source, delegate, especially the collection view delegate flow layout. I'll just create a snippet for that, especially for the assessment, so you're not wasting time on that. We could update this here, just make it frame because it's not taking up the entire frame. And our collection view cell, what does it have? We said it has an image view of the article. It has title of article, and it has abstract of article. So those are the three elements we're creating for it. We'll start off by making the first UI view element. So we'll say lazy var, we'll call it news image view, type UI image view. And this is an image view, UI image view, return image view. Since we're testing, let's give it a default image. Here, I'll say UI image and system name. I'll simply say photo. For content mode for the photo, we will say aspect fill. We'll give it a background color just for testing. So here I'll say yellow. Yes, sir.
Would this, just in general, would this public lazy bar be considered a computer property within the view?
Somewhat, yes, because it's getting computed like a, think about it like a function too, or computed property, that's fine. Both of those are good. Yes, one?
What's with the parentheses at the end? What does that
parenthesis added. It calls it right away. It creates it and it calls it. The parents, it calls the property initializer. It creates it and it returns it to the caller immediately. It's a function call.
Oh, function call.
Yeah. Okay, so go ahead.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. So I know subclasses, the image, I mean the collection view. So I guess I've never done it this way. I don't think I've ever done it collection. I don't think I've ever done it this way. Like,
What are we talking about? The collection view?
yeah, like setting up like.
Oh, that's a cell. That's a cell for the collection view.
Right.
That's very similar to our view. This is very similar to a view.
Right.
There's no difference here.
So you're subclassing the cell, and then you're gonna make the collection view cell equal to the cell.
Yeah, I register it as this cell,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
And this is because we're not using a nib.
Yeah, no nib. So to go back to Tiffany's question here, we're doing that cell completely programmatic. There's no nib here.
Okay.
They're very similar to a view. Okay, very similar to a view. Similar to our custom cell, we'll register it.
Okay.
Right? Cool. But there's no yeah.
I don't think I.
Luba, you did something similar, right?
No, I did do that.
This way, yeah. Okay, very good. Cause the lab said either do it this way or the nib or the zip, right? And you're like, oh, I want to see stuff, which is fine, but be uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah, cool. Okay, so we have our image view here. Let's go ahead and set up the constraints for it before we go to the label. As you're creating your programmatic views, test frequently. Don't create a whole 5, 6 set of elements, then run it. Do one, test it, second test, third test. You see where I'm going with that? Right? Because it will get very frustrating and overwhelming if you do like 10 elements, you run it, and none of them work. Right? So test as you go. Okay? All right, so next up we have our private function. We'll call it setup news image view constraints. And again, for people keeping track, what we are doing here is the second bullet here, where it says custom programmatic cell. Do we see that? Right? So I'll make a list myself and make sure that I'm comfortable with the topics as I review myself. Does that make sense? Like, can I do a collection view programmatically? Can I do user defaults? Can I create a subclass of a UITop controller? Right? Can I write a unit test that tests a model? Setup news image view constraints. So first thing we do here, we say add subview. In that case, we add in news image view to the subview. Next up, we say news. Did I say new? We'll update that to news, okay? New image view dot translate constraints to false. And then NS layout, very good. Sounds like music now, right, Tiff? All right, very good, very good. All right, what does our constraints look like? We said top left edge with some padding. So we'll start off by saying, when you're dealing with cells, there's no safe area layout, okay? When you're dealing with the cell constraints, there's no need for safe area layout, okay? You constraining it to the cell itself. So now we'll go ahead and we will say here, what's the first thing we're gonna do? We're gonna say new, I really need to refactor this, sorry. Refactor our new image view to news. News image view. It's kind of getting to me here. So news image view, right? Not new image view. All right, so news image view, let's go ahead and say that. So news image view dot top anchor, we constrain it equal to the top anchor with a constant of, say, 20 here. So if we go back to our prototype, where is it? Not there. If we go back to our prototype here, right? Our image view, we want to pin it to the top and the lead-in, but we want to have some padding there. Does that make sense with the prototype we have? So that's what we're going for with the image view. Cool. So that gives it the top padding here of 20. Next, we'll say news image view dot leading anchor constraint to, I don't want this, sir, constraint equal to leading anchor with a constant of 20. Again, it's positive because we're moving away from leading, we're going towards the trailing, so that's positive here. Same as the top, it's positive because we're going down. Next, let's deal with the height first. So height, we'll make the height proportional to the height of the cell. So height constraint equal to the height of the cell with some multiplier. We'll say 0.3. And we will make the width the same as the height. So width anchor constraint equal to um, 30. So the width equals to the height of the image view. The height, we made it 30%. We could change those numbers based on what we see as the end result. But now we say the height is 30% of the height of the cell, and the width is equal to the height of that image view. Right? So it's a square. Yes? Yes. Anywhere you have UI kit, you could use UI screen. Does that sound fair? All right, very good. Awesome. Okay, let us make sure to call setup news here in our common init. And make sure you call in your common init in your two initializers. Since we're doing review, I challenge you, give you 2 minutes to go ahead and set up that cell in the news controller, right? Set up the cell in the news controller such that the cell shows up. All right, cool. Everybody's done typing the constraints, correct? Yes? Okay, let's go now to our news controller. Let's go over to our newsfeed controller here. Go over to our newsfeed controller, and we want to now register the cell we just created. Picture or visualize you're in storyboard, and your collection view was generic UI collection view cell, correct? And now you created a custom cell. What do? We go back to storyboard, and we change collection view cell to new cell. So we need to do that exact same thing here in code. We need to come here, we registered the UI collection view cell yesterday, but now we are creating a custom cell, so we need to now register our custom cell. So now we'll say new cell here. We registered our new cell. Okay? So now it looks for our new cell when it's doing DQ reusable cell. Okay? And we'll run it. And we have our image view showing up. Very good. Does everybody have their cell showing up? Not cell, rather, the image showing up in the top left. Yes? Yes? Mel?
Yes.
All right, cool. Tanya?
So you don't know to DQ it as.
We have to do it if we need to access those elements. Because right now, if I just say cell.news image, it won't know what that is.
But it is accessible and.
Yes, that's fine here. Because it's the parent, it will still be able to access it. But as far as like the elements of that cell that we created, we need to downcast it. In cell for row, right here. So in my cell for row,
Yeah.
if I say cell here, cell.news, it doesn't know about it. I need to downcast it in order for it to know about it. Okay?
For the reuse identifier,
The reuse identifier.
this part of the cell,
This is the first place we created it, right? Again, when we go back to our cell or our nib, whatever we're doing, we give it a reuse identifier. This here is the first place in our code that we say article cell, right? The second place we say it is in our cell for row, okay?
But we won't be able to assign like elements from API to the cell unless we downcast it.
Elements from the API.
Like,
The collection view cell doesn't have any elements.
The configure cell. We can.
Yes, we have to go ahead and downcast it. We'll write a configure on our cell, and exactly. But knowing how to register a custom cell is very, very important for our assessment there. So that's what we did. Any questions about it? Yes, sir.
Sorry, can I see your size for item at code?
Size for item. That's yesterday, right? Size for item. We just made it 30% the height. It might be a bit too tall right now. We'll make it shorter. Maybe we do 20. Let's see what 20 looks like while we're here. Just make it 20% the height of the device here. All right, that might be a bit better for what we're going for, but we'll tweak it as we keep going. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, what's the background color? We have blue, right? Where do we have blue here? Where's blue coming from? The collection view cell. Collection view cell, not collection view, the collection view. I'll change blue here. I'll just remove that blue wherever we have blue here. Collection view, blue. I don't want any more blur on my thing. I went back to newsfeed view and I removed blue, and now I have black. Okay. We'll make it background white. CV, background color. I'll say system background. System background is better. On dark mode, it's going to be black. During the day, it's going to be somewhat creamish, white. Or we could also do group, actually. Group is even nicer. There's a group background. Looks like a table view. That color resembles a table view background color, right? More to the creamy side there. Run it again. And we have our cells being rendered. Good, that's good, right? That's a better contrast. Yes? Again, up to us with our UI here. Now let's go ahead and create our two labels. Since our image view is showing up, let's go back to our new cell. Let's go back to our new cell and create our title label and our abstract label. So, same format here. Whoa. Public lazy var title or article title. Article title is a UI label. We say let label equal to UI label, return label. Label number of lines, we'll make it at most 2 lines. Label that font, we'll use dynamic type font. So we'll say UI font dot preferred font, and here we'll say headline. So if you start off by making your fonts dynamic, it becomes better accessible for the user. So if a user, like me in a couple years, is looking at your app, I want to make the font bigger, I could simply go to my settings and increase the font size, and your app font will also increase. Everybody with me? So your app is ready, accessible, right? So using the UI text style is recommended here. Okay, so here we have a headline, great. And we said number of lines is 2. Let's give it some default text. So here we'll say text is article title. And we'll grab this code, very similar to option drag, right, in Storyboard. And we'll say, instead of article title, we'll say abstract headline. Abstract headline will make this guy maximum of 3. And we'll say this is a subheadline. And this becomes abstract headline. No, we won't make a stack view. We'll just stack them up one on top of the other for this one. So you can go ahead and set those up. Anybody still typing? Okay, let's go set up the constraints for it. Private function, setup, article, title, constraints. And here we say add subview, article title translates auto resize and mask to false, ns layout constraint that activate. And what do we need here? So based on our prototype, if we look at the prototype here, the top of the label is aligned with the top of the image view. So that's where we'll start. So we'll say article title dot top anchor is constrained to my news image view dot top anchor. That's the first one. Next one, we'll give the lead-in some padding here. So we'll say article title dot lead-in anchor constraint equal to my news image dot trailing with a constant of 8. So 8 padding here. So leading edge of my article is constrained to the trailing of the image view with a padding of 8. Next, we'll go ahead and say article title dot trailing anchor constrained. One second, let me come back to that and see what's happening here. So you said why we constraining what?
Dot anchor to the news, image view dot anchor.
This guy here?
Yeah.
Because I want it to be the top where it says China here is aligned with the top of the image view. The tops are the same. I want the tops to be the same. So I'm saying top of image view is equal, or top of my title label is equal to the top of the image view. If I say the top of this bottle is equal to the top of this bottle, they're aligned at the top, correct?
So it means it's like,
No, that's the neighbor. Remember, auto layout is constrained to some other view, right? So they're aligned at the top. Luba, they're aligned at the top. Cool? All right.
You said arbitrary in
Let me go back to it. Luba, are you clear with this?
yeah.
Good? All right. So top anchor, leading anchor, trailing anchor 8. Trailing anchor is trailing. And here we say constant of, what's the value here? Negative 8. Very good. Okay, very good. Are we giving our label a height? No, because it knows its contents, right? You call that intrinsic value. It knows its intrinsic value, so we don't have to give it a height. As opposed to an image view, you have to give it some sort of height for it to know where it is. Okay, so article title, all that is good to go. We called it, we'll call it at some point. Let's go off to our next one. So the private, we'll say private func, and we'll say setup abstract headline. Thank you. Constraints. And here, let me get rid of the bottom bar here. So here we'll say add subview, and here we are adding the abstract headline, and we say abstract headline dot translating auto mask to false. Awesome. And let's go ahead and start laying it out with some neighbor, right? It always needs some neighbor. You need a neighbor to constrain it with. Yes?
Sorry, the leading anchor sets the trailing, and the trailing anchor is also set.
I need a comma somewhere here. Which one? This one?
They're both sets of the trailing anchor.
This one is not. This one is the trailing of the news image,
Oh, now.
right? And this one is the trailing of the cell. Cool? Very good. Okay, so abstract headline, we'll start off with the lead-in. Using the pattern we use right now, if we go in with this prototype, what's lead-in here?
the ending of the image view. The trailing of the image view.
The trailing of the image view, then you'd have to give it a padding as well, right? Or we could simply say lead-in is lead-in of my news headline,
Okay, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So here I'll say article or abstract headline lead-in is constrained to my article title dot lead-in. Any questions about line 78? So we're saying we want the lead-in of our abstract headline to be the same as the lead-in of my article title. Do we see that? Any questions there? Good? All right. We'll do the same for the trailing as well. So trailing anchor, constraint. Trailing anchor, constraint. Abstract, comma, what's happening here? Constraint equal to this. Oh, who told me I'm doing this outside here? If I'm doing outside here, guys, I gotta put active here, but we're using NS layout constraints, right? Okay. All right, all right. Everybody's looking out for themselves, huh? Okay. Okay. All right. I will copy this guy because it's the same. Leading and trailing is the same minus the words. So here it's trailing and constraint equal to article title trailing. Then to get rid of this. Okay, so leading equals to leading, trailing equal to trailing, and the top. That's it. That's the last one. What's the top going to be? So we said the top is going to be the article, right? Dot bottom. To keep it even, what's the constant? 8. If we go down, is it negative or positive? Right? Cool. Okay. Still typing? Okay. Still typing? Good? Okay, perfect. Let's go up to our common init to make sure we call our constraint code. So first we'll call our title, then we'll call our abstract headline. And make sure they both have placeholder text or some sort of text that we will see on screen. Okay, let's run our app. Cool. So at this point, we should see article title and abstract headline. Yes? Okay. That's a yes for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Let us now move forward. Actually, let's stop here and make a commit, right? We've done some work. Let's make a commit. Source control, commit. And here, what are we going to say? We'll say added custom collection view cell to news feed controller. I will commit the files and I'll push to GitHub. I have changes on GitHub. I will pull those changes. Yeah, like my particular GitHub. I was trying to push and you get this warning saying you have changes. So here I pull, it's up to date, and I push. Okay, great. Okay, so we could check that off. We did custom programmatic cells. Next up, we'll go back to our API client and we will get our cells connected with our API. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll do that and then we'll take a break after that. Okay, so let's go back to our code, go back to our newsfeed controller, and we have some work to do here. At the very top, let's start with the very top here. Do we have data? No, we don't have data. So let's create some sort of array. So private, I'm in the newsfeed view controller, private, and now we need the data for our collection view. So private var, we'll call it news articles. News articles is an array of what object? Article. Right? Top stories is the root level. And then we have our articles. So we know we need some sort of did set here to update our collection view.
Dispatch.
Why do we need dispatch?
Because it's coming from a network call, and we need to remove it.
Excellent. Man, somebody's been staying up studying.
I'm trying, I'm making track on that.
Very good. So here we'll have a dispatch queue because we're coming from an asynchronous call, a background call, a network request call. So we'll say dispatch queue here, and we'll say main, and we'll say async here, and we'll say self dot newsfeed view dot collection view dot reload data. And I'll put a to do. Actually, we don't need a to do here. To do will come into the next one. Okay. So this is the data for our collection view. Yes.
So, the users are related on top of each other, so the reason we have to know that is because,
Oh, you mean here?
yeah.
Well, the view doesn't know about the collection view. Like if I say view.collection view, it doesn't know about it. What knows about the collection view is the newsfeed view we created. That instance we created, the collection view doesn't live in the view controller. So to access it, you have to use property.syntax there to access that. Does that make sense? All right, very good. So we have our news articles array. Let's keep going. Load view, view did load, fetch stories. Awesome, so we stopped a good place yesterday. We have our fetch stories already in place. Make sure it's getting called in your view did load. So we call fetch stories. It has a default parameter, right? Remember, this is a default parameter here of technology. So if we have nothing, we just put technology here. It goes ahead, it makes its network request. We get back a completion. In our completion, we have a result type, which either has a failure or a success. If we have a failure, we print out an error. Ideally, you probably want to have some sort of alert controller here. Our success, we have our articles, and here we should have found 34. Does everybody have found 34, at least, right? If you're using technology, right? Okay, so here we have found 34. So we'll take that print statement out. Do you call fetch stories in view did load? Tuesday is near. I don't know. I heard there's a party. Actually, it's Tuesday and Wednesday.
Wait, what? This today?
Yes.
That's lit.
And
If you finish on, yes. Friday goodies. Friday goodies. Yes. No. Home? Nobody always try to stretch it, you know. Okay, cool. Back to code, right? Okay, let's remove our found articles print statement. And here we'll simply say self dot articles, news feed, news articles equal to articles. Are we submitting code like this? Is that code all good to go?
No, because it's supposed to be a week.
Right, because here I'm doing a network call with a closure. I need to be careful to go ahead and say break any retain cycles here. Myself becomes optional. And now I feel better about my code. So Fed Stories updates our news articles array. Question, when our news articles array gets updated, what happens? Chelsea? When this line of code executes, what happens? It triggers the did set. Very good. You could go home on Tuesday right away. Before you come, you could just go. Cool? So you trigger your did set here, and then it calls your collection view. Yes?
I have a question. So in that function, the API, we don't have to do dispatch.main.
In the actual API function?
We don't have to.
No, you do it where you have the UI. There's no UI in our API client. Right?
But if you were to do it,
If you were to do it over there, then when you come here, it's no longer on the background thread.
no, I mean like if one was to put dispatch, would it run like? Would it
You mean here? You mean here?
Yeah, would it run-
It doesn't do anything, but there's no reason to do it because you're not doing any UI update.
Okay, so let me look at that.
Cool? Just be, yeah, very good. So, yes. We're using weak self because here we're creating a strong reference cycle between two objects. You holding Jahid, Jahid is holding you. You guys cannot break apart. But if there's a weak connection there and Jahid drops, then the two of you guys could go separate ways. Right?
That's a way to say it.
Yeah. Yes, it's a relationship. Yes, it's like a relationship between our two objects. Say, in our case, the closure and the view controller. The view controller doesn't want to have a strong hold. If it has a strong hold on the closure, they need to have some sort of weak reference there. Right? Very good. Chelsea, does that answer your question? View controller is connected to the closure. If the closure is connected to the view controller with a strong reference, they both have a strong reference to each other. They won't let go of each other in memory. And that creates a retain cycle, which leads to a memory leak.
So it's supposedly
Yes. Or it doesn't care if the closure is on a different view at this point, it won't crash the app. Or it will not crash the app, but it won't create a strong cycle. Cool? Okay, so we call our Fed Stories, right? We assigned our news articles. At this point, let's go ahead and update. So you're doing your assessment, you've tested your collection view cells, they do render. At this point, you're working in your API. Now, instead of 50 here, you'll change your 50 to say news articles, that count. So that's gonna return the number of articles from your fetch. And at this point, we'll go ahead and update our cell for row as well, because right now that cell has no idea what a news image is. Does that make sense? And before we continue, we'll take a detour, not a detour, but we'll go to our new cell. Everybody navigate to your new cell. Navigate over to our new cell at the bottom here, the very bottom of our new cell. When I say the very bottom, not outside of my class, right? Be careful there. I'm still inside of my class, and I say public function configure cell for or with article use article. All right. We have an image and we have two labels. If we have an image, we need to import image kit here to help us. So let's go up and import image kit. So import image kit. So we have UI kit and we have image kit. Image kit will get us access to our get image extension function that we wrote back in unit 3. So image kit, go back down, and let's go ahead and set stuff up. So first we'll go ahead and set up our news article title. Article title.text equal to article.title. Next, we have abstract headline.text equal to article.abstract headline. We gotta take a bigger, we have more code to write actually. Because our multimedia is a bit tricky. That's one of those, like in the assessment, it gets tricky there. Okay, how many formats do we have in the JSON for images?
Like in our model?
Our JSON, if we take a look at Postman, image formats. There's Super Jumbo, right? What else? No Super Jumbo? Multimedia? Am I looking at the wrong thing? Am I looking at a different API? Okay, I'm looking at different things. I'm looking at.
Oh, I see format Super Jumbo, yeah.
Okay, okay. I thought I was making.
Image, subtype fold.
I thought I was making things up. Super Jumbo, right? What size is it?
I'm guessing it's 1365 by 2048. One of them.
So 2048 width by height, right? 2048 by
1365.
1365. What is the thumbnail? What's the thumbnail? What's the other one called?
So thumbnail is standard thumbnail or thumb large? There's thumb large.
Thumb large. What size is that?
150 by 150.
150 by 150. Okay, cool. Let's see what that looks like. So in our, let's see if we have that. Do we have that in our model? Do we have multimedia in our model?
Yeah.
Yes, we do. So we have multimedia in our model. This is multimedia here. This is the format, and this is the format that we said. So we're going after Super Jumbo. We care about Super Jumbo and Thumb Large. Those are the two we want. Right? So accessing it is not direct. Do we see that? Accessing the thing is not a direct access. I can just say, where am I? I can just say article.url, right? So I need to access it somehow. So this is where you probably want to write some code in your model to make it easy to access this element, right? There's a lot of things we could do to do it. We'll create, back in our model here, we'll create an enum, and we'll call it image format. Okay, case Super Jumbo, case thumb large. There's a normal case, right?
Yeah.
What's the other cases, if you don't mind? Standard. Anything else?
No.
Oh, the other one is a bit longer, right? That's fine for now. That's okay for now. Because the two we're interested in is Super Jumbo and Thumb Large. And we'll make this Super Jumbo Thumb Large. We'll use raw values so it's easy to access.
This is like when we did the user default, and we were gonna use the names of the functionalities.
Kind of, but yeah, kind of, but exactly user defaults. We just wrote like a wrapper. This is more like an enum, so we'll actually be when we call that. Whenever we want an image, we'll say, "Hey, get me a super image, get me Super Jumbo, or get me whatever I want." So normal, we'll say normal. All the letter, all our spell checks out, right? Yes. Are we looking at Postman?
Yeah.
I don't want to go over to Postman because my API key is there. So help me along the way. What's that?
Standard is standard thumbnail, uppercase.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, standard thumbnail.
And then there's uppercase, S and T. The space between them.
Okay, those are very important. Standard, thank you, sir. Normal is capitalized. What are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to achieve an easy way to access that image URL we want from the multimedia types, right? Okay? Because other than that, you have to write code multiple places to achieve what you want. But here, write it in the model, so your model makes that job easier for your entire project. So if we want to access a super jumbo image, it's easy to access it. We'll access it via some function, whatever it is there. Okay? So those are the things we have to be able to recognize and see there's an easier way to do it.
So, if I'm being honest, that was the way I would have done it, it would just been like, specifically way, like, out. And then just thought,
And what if it changes?
that might have a problem.
That's the thing, like when you start assuming like, yes, there's three, what if one of them doesn't have a multimedia, or whatever the case may be, right? You have to look out for that.
So in this case, we would be able to, using this method, we would be able to get whichever one.
Yes,
we wanted.
because we have two images we after, the super jumbo for like a detail view or whatever, and then the thumb large for the cell,
Okay.
right?
Could you, would you like map or,
We'll filter down in the function.
but you couldn't just filter it, like without doing the just saying like.
Whatever filter we have to do,
equals-
whatever logic we have to do, we still haven't done it yet. This just makes so our code is type safe,
Okay.
right? Because anybody could just type in something different and it doesn't exist. I know for sure that's what could potentially exist, right? So it type saves my code. Does that make sense? All right. Good. So I have image format here. Everybody has the image format enum. Let's go down and write an extension here. So we'll say extension on my article. So now we're extending article. To include some function, we'll access it via article dot. Yeah, so function get.
Would it be static or no?
No, we'll use it on the instance of the article itself. So article, get article image URL, or get, yeah. And that returns a string. And here we say get article image for image format type image format. So Kelby, there's no way somebody could put in some random string here. Cool? So now we have our image format, we have our string. We could just simply return. What are we returning here? Well, first of all, we gotta get to multimedia. Let's do let result equal to multimedia is an array. That's why I do my filter, Kelby. So I'll filter here. And what am I filtering by? Filtering by 0 equal to image format dot raw value. No, image format dot format equal to image format dot raw value. Great. So that's a powerful line of code. Let's go over it. Multimedia, we are in an article. Everybody with me? I'm in an article here. I have access to multimedia. What is multimedia? It's the array of multimedia images we have. On that multimedia array, I say filter. I'm looking now for the format that matches the one the user put in. And here I'm saying raw value. So basically, what does this look like? It says is, for example, if the user is looking for thumb large, is thumb large equal to thumb large, right? That's what the equation comes up to, right? The $0 dot format says, is that format I'm looking at equal to the one you're asking for? And filter just returns an array. Everybody? Okay, filter returns an array, and here we have the results. I'll say results because it could be more than one. Okay, could be more than one. Here, next step will say, well, let's actually just guard against this. So we'll say guard results dot first. Not really. Let's just keep this simple. So if results dot first, what I want to do here, I should have at least one result. So guard results dot first, else will return normal. And here we'll capture what first is. So here I'll say multimedia, or not multimedia, I'll say format. And then I'll say return format dot URL. So if I do not get a result, meaning that doesn't exist, I return, if here results is 0, results is 0. If results is 0, I simply return a normal image. If I do get back a result, I take the first result because I should only have one result in that format. Everybody? Right? If I'm looking for super jumbo, there's only one that exists in that array. So I grab the first one and I say, go ahead and just return the URL. The URL is the actual URL of the article. Yes? One second. What do I want to return here?
So it's taken in a string. You're using it, you're going to use a string. Picture and the string comes from the URL.
Yeah, not normal. We'll return empty. Empty is fine. And then you could do whatever you want with that. Right? You'll put in like a placeholder image. Thank you for that. Okay, so here we return the URL. In that case, we have the URL. And that gets us our job, right? That gets us the image URL we want. It's a bit of work, but it avoids you writing that same code or whatever logic you want to write. You'll write that same logic multiple times in your code. But now on our article, we'll simply say get article image URL, and it returns us the image URL. Okay? Actually, here we could just return. No, that's fine. Empty is fine. Or nil. Could be. We could update that to return nil. But no, that's fine. Just empty string. Empty string is fine. We'll handle it later. How are we doing? Anybody still typing the get article image URL? Normal actually is misleading, but as Amini picked out here, normal is not a URL. Because whatever we want back, it needs to be a URL. Whatever we get back here needs to be a URL string.
Yeah, but wouldn't that be the formats and then
The format, okay, I'll go back to the Postman here. Guess my thing was just gonna just show here. This is the multimedia object. This is the multimedia object we're after. It's an array of stuff, right? What we're after is that URL, okay? The user says, I want to get a format of, for example, type jumbo, right? So we use a filter. We say, go ahead and filter with a format equal to jumbo and return that array, or return that element rather, right? But now we return format.url, which is this URL here, okay?
Like usually when you have,
Yes, it's not straightforward, right?
so it's just for this one.
Yes, that's like one of those, like if you get an assessment, right?
Wait.
We did it together, so if you get it, you know, right? All APIs are different, right? The way people structured APIs are all different, right? So here they give you, the user, 5 choices of images. You choose the one you want.
Who wrote this name?
Oh, I think maybe it's
We'll change format. I
Yeah,
thought about
it's
it.
basically just saying, find me where in
We'll-
the
we'll-
API format is equal to this.
We'll change the word format. That's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you change it to multimedia dot.
But I don't want to make it multimedia because we have a multimedia already. We'll name it something else.
Okay, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's what we
yeah.
mean.
Wait, real quick, so results dot first refers to the first thing in the multimedia order?
Yes. Well, not the first thing. Wherever the first instance of that thing exists, right? So, example, if we say standard thumbnail, that would be the first in the results array. It should only have one in reality. It's not going to have many. Because when in that array, we only have one format that says standard thumbnail. We'll rename format Luba, okay? Do we all understand where that multimedia array is coming from? Cool? So for Luba, especially this one is going to be for you, right? It's going to be an array of arrays, and you have to get it in the last one.
And then we will disappear.
All right, very good. So let's rename our format here for less confusion. We'll say image format or something, or image, multimedia image,
You can't just say selected.
multimedia image. Okay. So multimedia image.url gets us the URL. If we don't have a URL, we return an empty string. We could have gone one step further and just made it optional. But we return an empty string for now, or you could have a default URL if you prefer. Either or, there's multiple ways we could do this. Any questions before we move on? This is very important. If you have any extra code you want to do on a model, please put it in your model so that it works on that model. Our example here, the way we'll be using this is saying article.get article image URL, and we'll pass it, for example, super jumbo. This is the way we'll be using this in our cell for row. Okay? So being used to writing code like that, extend your article to add in any functionality you want to, is very important.
We're using it in our configures.
Yeah, in the configure cell, yeah. Where we have the get image part.
So, this is as opposed to making another struct and go looking for something.
We have enough structs here already to get everything we want. There's nothing else we could do here.
Well, what if one
We have the multimedia format is a string, right? And we have a URL, but we have to get into multimedia, which is an array. If you go back here, it's an array of multimedia. If it was just multimedia as a dictionary, I'll just say multimedia.url, and I'm done,
okay, it's in a way, okay.
right? That's like one of those that'll take us a longer time, right, to see there. So that's good that it came up now. So Luba is more, I'm ready on Tuesday. All right, let's go use it. So that's how we're going to use it in our configure cell or also our detail controller, wherever we have that image. Okay, let's go back to our new cell. Those are all the formats. We are good here. I'll just leave that there, that's fine. Explain one more time this one. Okay, first we created an enum. Because we created an enum because we do not want our user to just put in any random string here. For example, if we had this as a string, they would be able to put in any string, right? Like super jumbo with an extra space. That doesn't exist. But in order to make it more type safe, we created an enum to say those are the valid types of images. Yes, exactly. So when they're calling that function, the only thing they could pass in is one of our enum types. We could bring in more enum types here later. It's easy to put in the next case, for example. Cool? So first, that's the first step. So they put in the image type they want, and then it returns them a URL string. Cool? Keep in mind, you could update this string to actually a URL. We haven't done much of this, but keep in mind, instead of saying string here, you could return a URL. You could create a URL and just return it. Okay, but I don't want to keep showing us new things before we like, oh, is that going to be on the assessment? All right, so let's go back to the new cell here and use it. I'm back in the new cell. I'm in configure cell for article. And I have an image, right? We have our news image view. We say get image. And here is where we want a string, correct? This is that part we want a string. So here we'll say article dot get image dot super jumbo not super jumbo, sorry, thumb large. I don't want the super jumbo here, that's not gonna be good. Thumb large. I'm in a cell, I want the smallest image possible. Well, not smallest image possible, but I do not want a 2000 pixel image on my table view or my collection view, okay? That's gonna make scrolling very slow. Everybody, keep that in mind, please. If you have your collection view or your table view, you want 200 by 200 at most there as a thumb image. All right. And now we just go back to our regular switch statement on our result type. So result, here we have case failure, and we have case success. We actually have an image. Don't forget our weak self here. And we'll dispatch queue main async here. And on my news image, I'll say image equal to image. And if I do have an error here, I'll put in some image. Image equal to UI, image system name, exclamation mark, octagon. Yes. Yeah, you can. You could do that. I like to just keep it where the UI is, even if I did it twice here in that case. Tiffany, you had a question as well?
I was gonna ask if you could make, like, how do we make the image view bigger if we want to make it bigger?
The image view, is it tiny? Oh, just increase go back to your cell constraints. And I think we have 30%? Yeah, what we have now? We have, yeah, we have 30%, so make it,
Inside of, the height constraint.
yeah. I take it that yours is working already?
Yes.
All right, very good. How are we doing? Anybody still typing? Okay, let's run it and see what we have since Tiffany is flying away. Oh, okay. We got to call it, right? No, we haven't called the configure cell. So we have our configure cell here, but let's go back to our cell for row in our newsfeed controller. In our newsfeed controller, we have a bit of work to do here still. In our newsfeed controller, the cell for row, let's now cast this to a new cell. So guard let cell as typecasted here to our new cell. And here could not downcast to new cell. So we have a new cell now. Now we could do what we want to do. We could say, first, let's get the article. The article we'll get from news articles, indexpath.row. And now we have an article. We'll call cell configure cell with article. We run our app at this point. And now we have everything showing as it should, right? So here we have our image showing up. We have the title. Let's blow that up a little bit more here. We have our image showing up. Some folks want to have bigger images. To do that, go back to your cell class and then increase the multiplier there on your height anchor if you want to increase the image size. But we have our cell being populated correctly here. Right, scroll here, we have all our images being populated. Right, very good, very good, very good. Cool. So this is a good place to take a break. Any questions before we break? Yes? The background, yeah, I took it out. Oh, you mean like the background color?
You know how you made it like this range to see?
I think the cell is the same color. I think the cell might be the same color. Let's see. I think what you're saying is one of them is off the color.
This is all technology?
I'm sorry?
This is for technology?
What do we have here? Yeah, technology.
This is look like technology.
It might be. Let's double check the API, right? Like, we just double check the API, guys, and see what we have here. Simply check your API in Postman and see what technology gives you or whatever it gives you there. Cool. Any other questions as far as like code related? Yes? All right. So we'll take a break and we'll come back and we'll continue on. We'll do segueing. I think that's a good place actually. We'll do segueing and then we'll jump into persistence after that. That makes sense. So we'll take a break and we'll come back. Thank you.